Hey, don't click away. Today I'm going to show you how to repair a cracked screen on an iPad 6. Hey, what's up guys? Thanks for sticking around and checking out this episode. I'm Javier Guzman with MrPhoneDoctor.com, and today we're going to be covering an iPad 6 repair. So if this is your first time here and you guys enjoy all things tech and repair related, please make sure you guys hit that subscribe button and smack the bell so you're notified on our latest videos. And while you're at it, please make sure to give this video a thumbs up. It does help out with the YouTube algorithms. If you guys do have a device that needs a repair, please visit us at www.MrPhoneDoctor.com or simply reach us on any of our social media platforms found below. And if there's something you guys want to see in particular, please leave your comments down below and I'll do my best to make a video on your suggestions. Alright, now that we got all that out of the way, what's up guys? Thanks again for checking out this episode. So today I'm going to be covering an iPad 6 with the cracked broken screen. You can see this is the iPad 6 that we're going to be working on today. It does have a little bit of damage up on top here. So with these types of repairs, these are relatively pretty straightforward repairs. You know, you don't have to worry about separating any glass from LCDs or OLEDs. These actually have a separate digitizer layer that just sits on top over the LCD. So without further ado guys, let's go ahead and begin. Alright, so to do this repair, we're actually going to be using our larger heating plate. We do have a large plate right here, as you can see. This behemoth is a 12-inch separator. And what we like to do is we just like to set our iPad up on top here so we can get it to a good temperature, and we can go ahead and help soften up all the glues and remove the broken digitizer that's on here. Alright, so we'll let this sit here for a few minutes, let it heat up, and then we'll cut right back. Okay, so the iPad is nice and toasty. I'm going to go and get some gloves so I don't burn my fingers. And let's go ahead and put our goggles on. Everything feels nice and warm. I'm going to go ahead and use a clear card here that we have. I like to use these because these are plastic. These actually are a lot safer on the bezel. You don't leave any kind of gouges or scratches on the bezels. So anytime that we do any opening like this, we do use plastic. So I'm just going to go ahead and trim this here. There we go. So we are good. Let's go ahead and, since this one actually is cracked up on top here, I'm going to go ahead and just use this as an entry point. This will be a nice place for me to start since I can actually see exactly where I'm at. And then if you guys wanted to, you guys can use some alcohol to soften up some of this adhesive. I may actually put a little squirt. And you don't want to use too much alcohol just because of the fact that if it seeps in and it gets on the LCD, you're going to actually get discoloration on the LCD because these LCDs are designed in layers. So any kind of water or moisture that gets in there, you'll see streaks on the LCD backlight. You can see how I just put a little squirt on the card itself and let it do its magic. And this Apple glue is really stubborn. They use a really good adhesive to hold this in. Now you always want to be careful when you're going in on the edges because you don't want to go in too deep and hit the LCD. So I've done quite a few of these, so I know exactly the depth I need to be at. So I'm familiar with how deep I got to go in. And then you want to always be careful down on here because you do have your Wi-Fi antennas down here. So you want to make sure that you're relieving them from the glass because they're actually glued onto this glass here. Anytime that you feel it kind of hard, you don't want to force it because more than likely you're hitting the ribbon cable for the Wi-Fi adapter, and you don't want to do that. And as you do many of these, you actually get a good feel of how it should feel. so you know not to put too much force. Alright, she is ready to lift up, it looks like. Any areas that still have adhesive, I'll just go ahead and gently lift up with the tweezers, but it should be nice and soft since we already went through with it on the card. There we go. And then these open up like a book backwards. Each iPad's going to be different. With these series, they actually open up backwards like a book, and you have the flex cables on the right hand side. So we have this open. Once you do have it open, you do want to be careful because you actually have your home button here. So that's another caution you got to be careful for, is you don't want to go in too deep on this lower right hand side because you actually have your home button running there. If you go in too deep, you'll end up tearing it, and then there goes your Touch ID. So make sure not to go too deep on here. I'm going to go to remove this from the heating plate, and I'm going to remove the digitizer from this actual iPad. And we're going to use this heating plate again here shortly to help soften the glues and adhesives. But I'm first going to want to just remove this broken digitizer. Alright, so we need my screwdriver here. And let's go ahead and remove. You're going to have 4 screws holding this LCD panel down, and they're hidden. You can't see them. Got to lift this up a little bit. And you want to be careful not to touch the LCD, because if you do touch LCD, you're going to leave fingerprints on it. And trying to clean this, you're going to just go crazy. So you got to do your best not to leave any fingerprints on this LCD. If you want to wear gloves, you can wear gloves. You know, that'll help you prevent any kind of smudges on the LCD, but I know how to handle these. I've done quite a few of them. And it looks like they have a little bit of some rubber gaskets, some rubber glue holding them down on the corners. So we're going to just gently break up this glue that's holding them down. There we go, like so. We do want to always first kill the power before we start disconnecting any cables, so the power is found right here. And these are running on pogo pins. They actually have these 2 little pins that go down on the battery. So to relieve those, what I do is we just cut like a little U, make a U, and we'll stick this inside to just kill the power from going through. So you can see how I have this here. And there. Now we have killed the power with those little, with this little card that we put on there. So now we can go to remove the LCD and the digitizer flexes. They are covered by this panel here. Alright, and you want to just lift up on this shield. This shield actually has the LCD flex attached to it. So if you lift up, you can see how it all comes off together as one. See that? It's all right there. So I'm going to set this aside, keep this safe. Don't drop anything on it, and make sure nothing gets smudged on it. I'll set this right here on the side. And I can go ahead and remove the home button flex, which is right here. I'm going to lift this up, pull this out, and then we can remove the digitizer flexes right there. And we'll pull this out, and there you go. This is the digitizer for the iPad 6. It's all beat up. And we are going to need to remove this home button. So let's go ahead and set this on our heating plate. And I like to just use a little metal card and just shave this off, because we do need to glue that over onto the other iPad. Oh, we're getting stuck here. All right. So I'll set the iPad aside. I'll go ahead and bring back this heating plate. All right, so to remove this home button, I'm going to use this metal card here, and you just want to get right between the glue and the actual bracket that holds it down, and you just want to cut right through it. You can see how I'm just cutting it right there. There's one. I'm going to go ahead and do this lower part here. There we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and just run this along the flex like so, just to help alleviate any glue that's holding it down. And we do need to remove this little chip right here. And then we need to get underneath this home button because there is some adhesive underneath this, between the home button and the actual glass. And once you get this up, it'll just come right off. See that? So here's the home button. And I'm going to go in and just give this a cleaning because we are going to re-adhere this home button onto the new device. So I'm going to hold on to this little cushion that came off. This covers this little copper plate. I'll set that aside. But I'm first going to just clean any kind of adhesive that's on it because we want it to adhere properly. And I like to have a nice clean surface when I re-adhere things. There we go. We have a nice clean surface area. We can apply the glue and attach this to the new glass. So we don't need this anymore. We can throw this, discard that. Now we do want to make sure we do a nice detail on the actual iPad itself. And what I mean details, we want to make sure that we get majority of this glue and gunk off because I don't like to sit any new glass on here with this dirty. So I'm going to use this little rotary tool to help, you know, grab majority of this stuff. Alright, so we got majority of that. Just going to use a little bit of alcohol. Put this on the bezel and get any excess that is on here removed. So this is actually the part that takes the longest, is cleaning all this. Assembly and all that is cake. You guys saw how easy it was for me to remove it, so we just got to do everything in reverse and put everything back on. Then here's those little Wi-Fi antennas that I mentioned to you earlier that you got to be careful for. They're actually attached on here, so you don't want to cut those. Have to replace them. All right, let's rotate the iPad so I can work the other side. We'll be done here shortly. All right, iPad is clean. Take a look at her. See that? See how it's nice and clean all around the edges. So she's going to be ready for a new digitizer. I can get this monstro plate out of the way. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and run and get the digitizer, and I'll show you guys the next final steps on assembling this iPad. All right, so let's go ahead and begin assembling the digitizer. This is the digitizer that we have here. See that? And we only use premium quality digitizers. There's a lot of digitizers on the market. We like to use the best ones for these phones. Reason why is because there's a lot of ghost touch that happens on the cheaper quality ones. So these digitizers, I mean, they're about $40, $50 just for this part. So I do recommend that you guys get the higher quality digitizers. I'll leave a link down below to where we get our parts in case you guys are curious as to where we're sourcing our parts. We use Injured Gadgets. They're a great supplier here in the US, and for these types of parts they do great. So I'll leave a link down below so you guys can check them out. So let's begin. Now, before we do assemble everything, what we like to do is we like to make sure that the digitizer is working properly. So to do so is we're going to go ahead and just plug in everything without tightening everything down. So I'm going to basically plug in the LCD, and then we're going to plug in the digitizer and just test the touch, make sure everything's fully working. Alright, pull the LCD, which we have right here. So let's plug in the digitizer first. There we go. And then if you want, you can also piggyback this home button as well. There we go. That was simple. And then we'll just lay the LCD over everything. And we will boot up. There we go. She's in. Remove the power. Gently set the LCD down. And let's boot it up. There we go. Good. Good, good. We'll gently lay this over. And I believe I need a passcode for it. Is there a passcode on the back? There is. And it is 251709. And what I like to do is I like to turn the accessibility on, the touch assist. That's a feature on here that allows you to drag and test all the areas on the touch. I'll show you guys where I enable that on this device once it boots up. Good, so it's actually already there, so I won't need to go into the settings. So normally whenever we check these in, we make sure everything's working. And you just want to drag this, make sure that it's working. We're getting a little bit of false reading, probably from this piece of foam that is touching the screen. So I'm going to get rid of this here. And it looks like this. There we go. So just want to make sure everything's working. And this digitizer is no good. See how we're not able to. Let's just make sure. Maybe because that digitizer's sitting down, so. Normally I don't have this many issues, guys. Why is it that always when we make a video we have some complications? But I think this digitizer may be faulty. And that's one big reason why we like to test every single part before we do a full install. We don't want to work twice, but just trying to see if we can. Yeah, normally we could just lay the digitizer on top here and drag, but in this case, we'll reboot it and reseat the digitizer, see if maybe it gets a better connection. If not, the digi's going to be bad, and I'm all out of black. We're going to have to just use a white one for this matter. Connections look good. Put these back in. And we'll set this back in here. All right. Let's give it another whirl. So you can see, guys, in this repair world, nothing is perfect. Nothing happens ever the way you want it to. At least sometimes, you know, it's not all the time that this happens, but this is one big reason why we like to test. That way we don't put it all together assuming that it works and then have to take it all apart, and then of course you give it to the customer and they have to come back, and it's just a bad expectation. So that's why we like to test every little part that we use. And the good thing with Injured Gadgets is they're really, really good on returns and replacements. So since this is not installed or anything like that, even if it was installed, they're really good at working with you and giving you a credit for this iPad Digi. So, but it looks like, see that? It's good. It just wasn't seated in properly. Now this is how it should be working. See how fluid that is? You can see it work in every area. So the part was not bad. It just wasn't connected properly. And that's good. Just want to go ahead and go through again, make sure it's all working, which it is. Looks good. Nice and fluid. It's very rare that I find one of these not working, but sometimes they do. Boom, kill it, and we're good to go. So we can go ahead and move forward and begin attaching the home button onto the digitizer. So I'll set the LCD aside. And for this part, we do actually need to let the home button glue down, because what we're going to do is we're going to actually glue this little guy onto the Digi. And I like to use this type of T8000 glue right here. This actually works wonders. It works really, really good. It's better than the double-sided tape. You know, double-sided tape, it always appears to, you know, just come off whenever customers are using it. They press it one too many times and then the home button will get sunken in. So I like to use this T8000, and I'm just going to put a little bead of glue right here and here, and I'll go ahead and set this home button here, down here on top right there, like so. So it's going to get this glued down, and we'll have to let it sit because it does need to dry. I'd say you want to let it dry for about 30-45 minutes. Once it dries, we can go ahead and reassemble everything. So let's go ahead and get this glued down. I'm going to get any tested tape out of the way that is here, because we're going to apply the button there. I'm going to just press down, and you always want to make sure there's a little pin in here that needs to actually go over the center of the button. And that needs to be aligned properly. If not, what happens is you can actually see a little pin right there. It won't get a good press. Always make sure it's aligned properly. So we're good. I'm going to let this sit here for about 30-45 minutes. And then I'll come back and we'll go ahead and finish this install. Alright, so time has passed and the home button is nice and clicky. You do always want to make sure that the home button is nice and firm, and it has a nice click sound to it. If not, it's probably pressed in too much and you're going to be actually not able to use it. So it is good to go. So we can go in and begin reassembling the iPad. And I did forget to mention that you do need to get this piece off. This piece actually comes off from the, it's actually glued onto the glass, and that just sits right on top here. It's like a little bracket there for the selfie camera. So make sure we put that in. Alright, so we're going to want to go ahead and assemble the digitizer first. So we're going to go ahead and attach the home button here. Fasten that down. We're going to want to put the digitizer flexes. And let's make sure these are in properly. There we go. It made a nice click sound, so I'm almost certain it's good. Set this down gently. And let's get the LCD, and we'll affix the LCD right here. So before I screw everything down, I do want to make sure it's working. So I'm just going to boot it up real quick. Test, test, test. Test-a-roo, like always, right? If you guys know me by now, we test everything. It's better to test than have to work twice, trust me. Alright, so she's booting up. Looks pretty. And come on, see, we don't have a good attach. We're not attached right. Not again. This happens. Yeah, it may have loosened up whenever I laid this digitizer down. So let's go ahead and, yeah, because there's not much slack on here. So whenever we do lay down the Digi, I believe it's probably lifting itself up. It was detached. Damn it. There's not much slack, so you got to be very gentle. Or what I'm going to actually do is, what I usually do is, I usually set this up against something to keep it from laying down, because once you lay it down, it ends up lifting up. See that? I lift it up again. So I'm going to use this monster plate, this monstro. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and just lean this digitizer up against here, like so, and we'll fasten it down. There, now we have plenty of slack, so it won't end up lifting up whenever we lay it down. There we have it. Let's give this another try. There she is. See that? That's how it should work. And it is good. So the Digi's good. It was just that little connection. All right, so there she is. She's working. It was just unfastened. So let's go ahead and start tightening everything down before we unfasten things and end up having to reassemble everything. So we're going to go and want to get the power back on, the power screw. And I like to just gently do them the first time around, and then after they're all seated in properly, I'll go through and give it the proper tightness. This just assures that the plate lines up properly with the screw threads. There we go. So everything's good. Tight, tight, tight. Now we can attach the LCD. Set it down. Let's just make sure everything's working again. Good, nothing detached. Digi's perfect. Okay, so let's go ahead and attach these. Good. Good, good. Everything is nice and tight. Let's go ahead and attach the digitizer. And if you notice, it does have Tessa tape up on here. I don't technically like to just rely on that Tessa tape for some reason. You know, I've seen that the digitizer starts to lift up. So I like to put a bead of the T8000, which I have right here. I like to put a bead around that edge. And of course, I'm gonna actually just clamp it down. So I'm gonna need to grab the clamps. Let me grab the clamps so we can go and finish up this last step. Wow. All right, here's the clamps. See that? We got a nice little bin. Phone clamps. These are the clamps that we like to use. And we do use quite a bit of them on this iPad. I like to make sure that it gets a nice firm grab around all the edges. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and put a bead of the B8000 or E8000, T8000, whatever they call it, around the edges. And we'll just apply the glass. One tip, guys, sometimes on the bezels, I did forget to go over that. The bezels do get beaten in. Sometimes if they are bent in, you do have to file those down. So just let the customers know ahead of time that say, hey, you know what, this corner is bent really badly. We're gonna actually have to grind it, so it's gonna leave like an opening. If you don't, the glass won't sit on it flush and it'll leave some lippage on there, causing dirt, debris, and stuff like that to get in. So I do recommend filing down if you do need to do that. Now that we have that, we can remove this Tessa tape. And before I do forget, I do want to make sure we add this little gasket back on, cover up this home button here. And we're going to need to remove this lower Tessa tape here. And I'm going to apply one little bead here over this area that I missed. Any seepage that does seep over, we'll go ahead and wipe those down, so that's not a problem if it does get over the edges. All right, there we go. Now this is where you want to remove the clear sheet on the interior that protects it from fingerprints. Pull this off. Good. Now we want to make sure that these flex cables get tucked inside. So you just got to be careful not to touch the inner part. And I like to just snake these in. This actually needs to attach the digi. And once you have those in, we can just seat these in, press it down. Make sure everything's pressing down. We're good. Good. And this needs to align up on top here. There's some little pins that need to align with the selfie cam. There we go. Just like so. Touch is working. Beautiful. So now we'll go ahead and apply the clamps around the edges just to make sure that this iPad seals up nicely. And we do want to let it dry for a couple hours. Yeah, it's like 2 hours. Not too much. Technically, this repair can be done same day. You know, if you get started on it early, enough and let everything dry, then it's good to go within a day. And then when we remove these, this is when we'll go ahead and give it a final clean. We'll make sure to wipe down all the edges, make sure there's no glue seeping through, and that's pretty much it. And there we have her. Looks like Hellraiser. All these needles coming out of them. That's pretty much it, guys. So we'll let this dry for a couple hours. Once it's dry, like I said, we'll go in and give it a final detail, but that pretty much is iPad 6 screen replacement. You know, these are a lot easier, like I mentioned. They don't have a LCD and the digitizer attached to each other, so this is nice. You can just easily pop off the broken digitizer and put this new one on. It's going to pretty much wrap up my video, guys. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure you guys subscribe, hit that like button, and hit that bell so you guys are notified on our latest videos. I'm going to be coming up with some more DIY tutorials. Technically, it may be DIY if you have some of that heavy machinery in the back lab. So, but I really hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Cheers.